Sometimes you know from the outset where life will take you, what life will bring. You know the moment the sun breaks on a new day, how the day will unfold as dusk descends. Sometimes something changes in an instant. Nothing is the same ever again. Each day you learn something new. Every day is its own new day. We know that giving girls an education means a brighter future for all of society. At the Aydın Doğan Foundation, we continue inspiring girls to empower them. We have touched countless lives since the day we were founded, with education programs in the dorms we provide for female students, with education camps, trips and projects created by our volunteers. And so we keep working, because the meaning of life is to add meaning to other lives.
Ben avukat olmak istiyordum. Şimdi Aydın Doğan Vakfı sayesinde bu hayalimi gerçekleştiriyorum. Sen de yapabilirsin projesiyle yüksek öğrenim görmek isteyen kızların eğitim görmelerini sağlamak için çalışıyorum.
Many thanks for this video. Derya Gizem, who you've seen in the video, is actually with us today, and she'll be one of our panelists, and we'll be listening from her. Without further ado, let us start our panel. Thank you so much again for being with us today. We're very lucky to be joined by an esteemed panel of speakers. Our aim today will be to talk about the work that's already been done on the empowerment of women and girls, but also to inspire each other about new possibilities that we can undertake to amplify the voices of girls, to support them in their empowerment towards being active and equal actors in life. We'll have an interactive session with our panelists, which will be followed by a quick Q&A session in the last 15 minutes of our panel. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Vuslat Doğan Sabancı, the Vice President of the Aydın Doğan Foundation and the board member of Doğan Holding. Vuslat Doğan Sabancı is a business leader, a philanthropist, artist, and a prominent voice on human rights, gender equality, and freedom of expression in Turkey and around the world. In her 22 years at Hürriyet Publishing, Turkey's foremost newspaper group, Doğan Sabancı served as the CEO from 2004 to 2008 and as the publisher from 2008 to 2018. In addition to spearheading a major digital transformation in media, Doğan Sabancı led the editorial policy for promoting gender equality and minority rights and catalyzed a major improvement in the expansion and establishment of such rights in the public eye, as well as within the judicial system. The No to Domestic Violence campaign, known in Turkey as Aile İçi Şiddete Son kampanyası, which he initiated in 2004 in order to advance the social empowerment of women, was the first example of such efforts to use media in generating substantive, positive social change. The campaign was honored with a UN Grant Award for Outstanding Achievement in October 2006. Doğan Sabancı initiated the Rightful Women platform, which was formed together with 42 prominent Turkish NGOs to empower women in politics. The platform strives to achieve equal representation of women in politics, business, and social life. With hindsight of 20 years of experience in journalism, media, and civic leadership, Doğan Sabancı was compelled to explore alternative channels to convene thoughtful conversations in the midst of escalating social, economic, and political divisions, and turned her focus to philanthropy. To this end, she is in the process of launching the Vuslat Foundation, originating from the ancient concept of Vuslat, which describes a powerful urge to reconnect and a blissful union. Vuslat Hanım, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be here with you at CSW 65 to converse, to discuss, and to take action for women's full and effective participation and decision-making in public life. Women's full presence in public life is only possible through equal access to education, to workforce, to childcare and healthcare. I am sure we will discuss all these important measures at length throughout the day in different panels. But there is one more important vital thing that is needed in paving the way for women and girls' participation in socioeconomic issues. That is their inner drive, their willingness and determination to take part in all aspects of life. This morning, I want to share my stage with an inspiring woman who has embodied this drive. Her name is Mine Ekinci. Mine is an intelligent, hardworking young woman who has not only accomplished herself, but has also dedicated her heart, mind, and time to help others with lesser opportunities to thrive. At the early age of 9, Mine's life dramatically changed following a big earthquake when she had to leave the city and move to a small village. Undoubtedly, the education at her village school was not the best in the world, but being an exceptional student, she got accepted to Turkey's top high school, Robert College in Istanbul. And thus, the doors of an entirely new world opened up for Mine. Throughout her youth, she traveled between these two completely different worlds. On school days, she would stay at her dormitory overlooking the beautiful view of Istanbul Bosphorus and was taught subjects with sophisticated tools by mostly her American teachers. And on weekends, she would travel to her village to greet a much simpler life. Traveling in and out of these two distinct worlds, Mine observed the discrepancies in the quality of education and in the troubles that her friends at the village school were facing. It was during these times that she started thinking of ways to overcome the quality gaps in the education system. Her commitment to drive positive social change and her belief in equal opportunities to education led her to study education at Harvard University. Mine designed an initial project during this time after listening to the experiences of numerous teachers working in villages across Turkey and laid out the foundations of her initiative, which is KODA. Today, KODA trains hundreds of primary and secondary school teachers in order to prepare them for working in the most remote and underprivileged areas of Turkey. Mine started an initiative for social change. When asked how she succeeded, she says, "I started by listening to teachers." Mine's first step was to listen to the teachers to understand the issue and find out what is really needed. But actually, I believe that Mine's path to this initiative started much earlier. It started as she listened to herself, to her own colleague. This self-awareness is the inner drive that I'm referring to. Listening and hearing latent voices, not only each other's, but also your own voice, is vital in making a positive change in the world. As an arm's length institution, we're about to launch a global effort to unleash the power and the potential of listening generously at the Vuslat Foundation. Mine is one of the many girls we have had the privilege to support throughout our work at the Aydın Doğan Foundation. Yet there are many more. At today's panel, we will all be inspired by the amazing stories of these courageous, driven girls from different provinces of Anatolia who have turned obstacles into opportunities for themselves, for others, and for the society at large. At the Aydın Doğan Foundation, we work relentlessly to seek out and realize the dreams of such girls. We work to ensure that every girl in all corners of the country can benefit from the education opportunities. To this intent, in 2005, we launched a campaign, Dad Send Me to School, which quickly turned into a massive movement with 300,000 individuals and NGOs joining forces to overcome the gender discrepancy in K-12 education. We worked hard towards this goal. And I am proud to report today that within a few years' time, the education gap between girls and boys in K-12 has completely disappeared. At Aydın Doğan Foundation, our approach to girls' education is to accompany them throughout their entire education lives. We start supporting girls in the primary and secondary school and continue to support in high school throughout our 33 dormitories spread across the country. We offer scholarships at the university level and finally guide them through work opportunities as they graduate. Dear guests, gender discrimination comes in many forms. Yes, unequal access to education and workforce are forms of gender discrimination. But there's another critical gender issue, that is violence against women. Figures show that in one of every 3 women faces violence in one form or the other during her lifetime around the globe. In early 2000s, it was a time when honorary killings in the eastern part of Turkey started to be heard in the big cities like Istanbul. I, then the publisher of Turkey's leading daily, felt this urge to work on this social disease by launching a campaign against domestic violence. The matter was then considered a family issue and it was a taboo to be discussed. We provided trainings for police officers, imams, teachers to help stop violence against women. We used the power of media to build awareness and mobilize NGOs and the public authorities to work in the solution to protect women against violence.
Vuslat Hanım, my deepest apologies, but what you're saying is so valuable that we'd love to hear it. There has been a problem with the sound. We couldn't hear your last 3 sentences. Our apologies for the interference.
Sure. We started domestic violence campaign, and we tried to educate the imams, police, teachers to stop violence against women. And we used the power of media to build awareness, mobilize NGOs and the public authorities to work on the solutions to protect women against violence. We started Turkey's first and only 24-hour, 7-day hotline for domestic violence, assisting women with psychological and legal help, and saved the lives of many. Today, we support the line through the Federation of Women Association of Turkey. But the hotline should only be the last resort. Violence must be stopped before it accelerates. For this to happen, laws and their implementations must be strengthened. We work with many other stakeholders to lead the amendment of the Turkish Civil Code to protect women from violence. An important achievement in these efforts has been the Istanbul Convention. In 2012, Turkey became the first country to ratify the convention, followed by 33 other countries. Unfortunately, today, I am saddened by the recent development in Turkey calling for a withdrawal from the Turkish Convention. We will continue our efforts on this front to ensure that this basic human right is protected. We will also continue to stretch our support to make sure that women and girls have the opportunities to the means to flourish. Today, we will generously listen to each other to understand, to be recharged, and to boost our courage for further actions. Mine is a role model to all of us in more than one respect. She demonstrates that change can begin with one girl's experience, one girl who listened to her own voice and those in need around her made a change. To overcome gender inequality and discrimination, and especially violence against women, we need more people to listen. In fact, we need everyone to listen. Let's start it now, today, here. Thank you.
Vuslat Hanım, many thanks for your remarks, especially the inspiring story of Mine Ekinci, as well as the notion of listening generously, which we can all agree at this point is crucial, especially to listen to the experiences and the needs of young women and girls throughout the world. And thank you very much from my own side as a gender equality activist for adding your voice to the women's movement in Turkey, still fighting for the Istanbul Convention to be in place. Many thanks. Although we know that you will not be able to stay with us for the remainder of the panel due to your busy schedule, we are very happy to know that your support to the Aydın Doğan Foundation is actually endless. Our deepest thanks for your contributions today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now turn to Candan Fetvacı, the Executive Director of the Aydın Doğan Foundation, for her welcoming remarks. Candan Hanım, we're not able to hear you. I believe you're muted.
Yes, I'm sorry. Once more, dear participants, dear panelists, it is with great pleasure that we are beginning our panel of the Aydın Doğan Foundation at the CSW. Working on education, gender equality, and empowerment of girls and young women is definitely not an easy task. However, our journey on this issue is full of inspiration from the young women and girls that we work with, full of courage and compassion, giving us hope and strength in following our mission. This year, the Aydın Doğan Foundation is celebrating its 25th year full with projects supporting education. And now 16 years in focusing on girls' education. We believe that paving the way for the younger generation, creating awareness on gender equality and opportunities for young women is the supercharger for an equitable society. We would love to have this panel enhance our communication and collaborations with you all, with different youth-led organizations or organizations working on rights of youth and girls, bringing in new perspectives and to put our knowledge and experiences together to enlarge and strengthen the environment supporting young women and girls. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on the Aydın Doğan Foundation in our Q&A segment. But for now, let's first hear from our esteemed panelists, whom I thank from the bottom of my heart, giving us their precious time and support for this cause. And thank you, UN Women and CSW, for bringing us all together and giving us this opportunity. And once again, thank you all for joining us today.
Candan, thank you so much for your warm welcoming remarks. Now it's my great excitement and pleasure to start the panel for today. Our first panelist is Professor Betül Acar, Betül Kaçar, my apologies, who is a great inspiration for many girls in Turkey who want to go into the fields of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Dr. Betül Kaçar is Assistant Professor of Astrobiology at the University of Arizona. She directs a NASA Astrobiology Research Center exploring the essential attributes of life, its origins, and how they should shape our notions of habitability and the search for life on other worlds. She's also an Associate Professor at the Tokyo Institute of Technology Center for ELSI. Her research group builds molecular time machines to explore and attempt to resurrect lost histories, to understand why biology is the way it is today, and to compare ancient biology to potential signatures of life elsewhere in the universe. Kaçar was named NASA Early Career Faculty Fellow in 2019. And in 2020, she received the Scialog Fellowship for her studies on life in universe by the Research Corporation and Science Advancement. She is the first Turkish woman and the youngest scientist to lead a NASA research center. Just reading the bio is inspirational enough, but Professor Kaçar, thank you for being with us today. Although the stereotypes and the societal norms have always taught us that the STEM fields were not exactly for girls, you and many other successful young women in STEM fields are becoming important role models and beacons of hope for a more equal future. Could you tell us a bit about how you decided to follow such an inspiring yet non-conventional career as a girl child growing up in Turkey? It will be inspiring for us if you could tell us about the obstacles, but as well tell us about the encouragements and the opportunities you may have received along the way. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I also salute Mine and her determination. Women and girls like her inspire me. I like how this is a feedback loop that we just constantly inspire each other. It's very powerful. So I want to first visit the notion of the lack of interest amongst girls or women, or lack of presence of girls in STEM fields. There are actually, if you look at the classrooms today, we see a lot of girls. We see that at least even in college classes, we seem to achieve the gender discrepancy, overcome it rather. Because when we look at the classrooms, we may think that, okay, 50% of the classroom is female. So there's almost this 50-50 representation, that there's a half female, half male, and we are doing fine. But as you go upper and upper and upper in STEM fields, you will see that the ratio decreases and decreases. So the problem isn't to inspire girls to pursue degrees in STEM. They seem to be doing just fine. The problem is to retain them. So when you start scratching the surface, you will find that overall gender bias in roles are very high. And we see these things in distinct STEM fields as well, that there seems to be gender roles assigned in what sort of area within STEM even you will pursue. So going back to then, if it's so hard, how come people like me exist? How do we make it? And evidently we are rare, so that, we even get a stage like this. How did you make it? So here's to the days where our presence isn't rare and a weird thing and surprising, gives us this amazing platform to talk about it. So I hope and long for those days. But growing up, my role models were mostly book and movie characters. I didn't have any direct story that connects me, or a person that will connect me to science any necessarily. What enabled me, I think, is that I really early on realized that I'm very powerful, and I hang on to that. And of course, we cannot just rely on the inner drive all the time, because that needs to be sustained, right? But there are, again, these cases and situations and circumstances, I think, that enables people who have that inner drive to maintain that. In some ways, what was my main obstacle became also my main motivator, I would say, because I knew that early on, education is not a given right for women. So my family they were immigrants from the Black Sea region, settled in Istanbul, and I did not have any members of my family ever attend school. That includes elementary school. So I grew up watching my mom struggling to hold a pen. She couldn't, because she did not know how to write, and she was embarrassed about it. Later, she completed her education externally, but no women in my family, my grandmothers, my aunts, none of them has ever been given an access to education. And when I remember asking them these questions about how weird that is, for me at least, growing up in Istanbul, and I remember their embarrassment, that they were shy or really resentful about not having the right to go to school. So that became the fire for me, that I just didn't want to be like that. And I wanted to I would joke and say that I will get all the diplomas for all the women in my family. I will take all of them that you didn't have to, or you couldn't. So when I entered school, I braced myself for war. I braced myself for impact, that this is not going to be easy, because if it was easy, how come nobody in my family, no woman in my family received it? So I understood that this is a privilege. I understood that this is a place where I am not supposed to be, or I am not wanted. So I let that drive me further. And there's always a Turkish saying, I think that saves the day. I'm a big fan, and I teach Turkish sayings to everybody around me. And one of my favorite is that the tree that bears fruit will always be stoned. And I imagined myself as the seed that will become this big tree with amazing fruit. And every obstacle, every criticism, every challenge that I received, I reminded myself that I'm meant to be this big tree, and my fruit, they're very attractive. So that's what this is happening. They want it back. They want it down. So that's really, in a nutshell, I think, the overall story. But I would say that, it's important for girls to protect themselves and in many, many ways, but also protect their mind and imagination and their love for science. I think they should allow the questions of science lead them, the passion for the question, the interesting question in front of them, surround themselves with people who will support them. And without thinking too much on what is the future, where will this question lead me? Will I get a job in the future? Without bugging themselves on those too much. And I know it's difficult. Try to focus on what you love to do, and let the passion drive your way, because it, I think, leads to a really good place if you let it take you with it. Of course, the system itself is not going to want you to do that. and that's when the inner grit comes from, but you can support that with external system and reaching out to people who will support you and who will walk with you. So do not internalize the system. Do not let it to define you. You have to remind yourself that it is not you, because what makes the system is so difficult, I think, is that for every obstacle that is not fair, or that is fair or just or unjust, there are 100 different reasons why you are facing that challenge that is not what it is causing. Aside from the actual problem, we seem to address many other reasons that this is happening, aside from the fact that we do not seem to admit that the system is problematic and you are not supposed to be here. It is either you, or you are not smart enough, or you're not good enough, or you talk funny, or you look weird, or whatever. 100 different reasons for why you may not be fit for wherever you are, aside from the actual point that may, that if is addressed may actually lead to a solution. So when I tell you that you have to tell yourself it is not you, when you're being gaslit or when you're being diminished, you will hear many other reasons, and you need to remind yourself that these reasons are not the actual cause. The main reason is that the system is not designed to retain people like me, and that it's not my behavior, it's not my presence, or it's not me. It is a collective problem that we need to address.
Thank you so much, Professor Kaçar. That was immensely motivational and inspiring. I wish I heard this speech when I was 15 or 16, really. Thank you so much. It has been really from the heart, and I believe very true. It spoke truth to the experience of so many women and girls in Turkey. And your point about not internalizing the stereotypes and the obstacles that the system puts in front of us is so valuable and important. And I guess it is hopeful to know that organizations, youth-led organizations throughout the world, and organizations such as Aydın Doğan Foundation are helping all the girls to retain that inner passion and inner force, because it's very hard to do it by yourself against a system that's working against your success. Thank you so much. We'll be coming back to you with another question afterwards, but now please allow me to go to our second panelist, who you've actually seen a glimpse of before in our video, Derya Gizem Üst. Derya Gizem is a law student at Marmara University and a grantee of the Aydın Doğan Foundation. Her project with her friends, entitled You Can Do It Too, is a pioneer in peer-to-peer empowerment model of Aydın Doğan Foundation, and we're extremely delighted to have Derya Gizem with us today to hear her story and perspectives. Derya Gizem, you're also in a male-dominated area in law, especially as we go up higher in the legal careers, like Professor Kaçar mentioned in terms of STEM, we see less and less women in the decision-making positions. Could you share with us your experiences on how you find the power to challenge these norms, and how you came to this path, how you support other younger girls to do the same. Thank you, and the floor is yours, Derya Eksan.
Esteemed participants, I'm standing here today as a 24 years old law student from Turkey who was lucky enough to find her way to higher education and empowerment, and was even more lucky to develop a project to work on supporting young girls in high schools. My 14 friends and I are running a project called You Can Do It Too, targeting young girls who go to high school within Aydın Doğan Foundation. The project aims to encourage girls to go to university and to gain gender equality awareness. Everyone in this project has one thing in common. We are all young women and we all had a difficult childhood in different ways. Some of our families didn't want to educate us because we were girls. Some of our families thought we had to get married to save our lives. And some of us grew up in very low income families. Despite all disadvantages, we all tried our best to be educated and become strong young women. So we want to show girls who face difficulties similar to ours that they can overcome these just like we did. That's why the name of our project is You Can Do It Too. And it is a peer-to-peer mentoring project, actually. This project was born in the leadership summer camp organized by Aydın Doğan Foundation for the students who received scholarships from the foundation. This camp allowed us to create our own projects, so we created You Can Do It Too, which the foundation continues to support financially and spiritually. This project is about young girls who go to high school. We go to them and spend our 2 days with them in their dorm. And in this process, we work with them on various topics such as gender equality, university education, study techniques. Our goal is to raise awareness for university education because we believe that these young women and girls will get stronger by continuing their education. And we realized that most of the girls were afraid that they couldn't get support from their families during their university studies. And therefore, were reluctant to continue their education. That's why we are talking about the scholarships of the Aydın Doğan Foundation. I always tell them a story about myself. In the first year, I won the university and I applied to many scholarships, really many scholarships, but none of them accepted my application. I don't know why, but I was really in the worst period of my life because I had no money even to buy my books. One day my phone rang and the caller was Aydın Doğan Foundation offering me a scholarship. That day, my life changed completely. It was amazing to have someone support my education and my future without any other expectations. It feels good for girls to know that there is an institution to support them. So we always tell them about our relationship with the foundation. We also inform them and make presentations about gender equality. We tell them about women's human rights. We care about their awareness of gender equality because we believe that to be successful and self-confident women, they must first gain an awareness of equality. We talk about gender roles, stereotypes, importance of education, in empowerment of girls and young women, and importance of women's effective participation and decision-making in public life. The regions we visit are generally underdeveloped places, especially child, early and forced marriages and domestic violence are very common. Therefore, we conduct informative studies and share statistics on these issues with girls. We are always happy and motivated by the feedback we receive when leaving them at the end of the 2 days. Before this project, we only knew how it feels for someone to support us and hear our voices. But now we also know how it feels to do the same for other girls. On the first day of our project, we asked the girls about their dreams. Most of the girls say that they are afraid to study in big cities and they cannot succeed in the exam anyway. When we asked the same question at the end of the second day, the answers completely change. They are more hopeful and they believe in their potential and the possibilities for support around them. We have an advantage in working with high school girls because although we are a few years older than them, there is no real generational age gap between us. It means that we understand their language, anxieties, and hopes, and reply to them in this manner. We can speak their language, actually. Through our work, we introduce these girls to the centuries-long struggle women's rights and create a link between them. And work for gender equality, and we believe that women of all generations should have a link in this chain of struggle and solidarity for gender equality and women's human rights. This is why when we first heard about the Generation Equality campaign, it immediately reasoned with the work we undertake in Aydın Doğan Foundation. That's also why going forward, we are committed to supporting generation equality and raising awareness on it. We can feel that this perspective empowering young people so that they can undertake further work for future generations, become active participants in decision-making process in public life. Through this peer-to-peer mentoring is a very robust model. We are very happy to be supported by Aydın Doğan Foundation, which sponsors us and empowers us in this endeavor. Being able to address you all, getting my voice heard by an international audience and learning about the international process is a very valuable and empowering experience for me. However, more than being my own personal experience, now I can go back and take my new knowledge and experiences to the high school girls we work with, which I cannot wait to do. Thank you for listening to our words and voice very much.
Gizem, thank you so much for sharing with us these. It's actually really good to hear that you're able to coordinate the project yourself and go and talk to these young high school girls yourself. It's a very different experience to hear something from a peer than others. And I hope, sorry, I cannot help myself to say this, but I hope that we'll see you also in physical CSWs, Commission on the Status of Women, in UN, in the UN corridors in the future years. Thank you so much for sharing the peer-to-peer mentoring models. It really is a strong model that, that actually speaks to the heart of generation equality, where we see all generations working together for the same aim of gender equality and human rights. Now we can go to, we would like to turn to Melis Alpan, a feminist journalist from Turkey. Born in 1978 in Izmir, following her graduation from American Collegiate Institute in 1996, Melis got her BA from London College of Fashion and Design Technology for the fashion industry. Her dissertation topic was communication through clothes. She was chosen to do one term in New York's prominent college Fashion Institute of Technology. In 2001, she worked as a fashion editor at Vision magazine. Following that, she started to work as a reporter in Daily Radical. She worked as a reporter, an editor, and a columnist in Daily Milliyet. In 2009, she started to work in Daily Hürriyet as a columnist writing on social issues. In 2018, Melis became a freelancer. She has 3 public books. And as a gender equality activist from Turkey, I can say that Melis has been a very important voice in the media for gender equality and also environmental issues. So we're very happy to have Melis with us today. Melis, we'd like to ask you about your experiences when writing the I Can book with the Aydın Doğan Foundation. You covered the incredible stories of young women and girls throughout Turkey who were undertaking, again, non-conventional work in STEM, arts, and sports. What have been your observations from this process? What is needed for young women and girls to be directed, guided to these areas that they're really passionate about in spite of the stereotypes of the society?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shehnaz. As a woman journalist, it's my conscientious responsibility to make women's problems visible. Therefore, especially in the second half of my 20-year journalistic life, my work focused on violence and discrimination against women. During this time, I witnessed the gradual consolidation of the women's movement and women's solidarity in Turkey. Instead of keeping silent in the face of violence and injustice, seeing women raise their voices more and more every day gave me hope for an equal future. I think the reason women's movement easily gained momentum is because the problems women face in society are common. This movement includes all women, regardless of their language, religion, sect, class, or ideology. I think women are better working together for a common goal. I have to admit that writing stories of women who've been subjected to violence over the years made me weary, because although my job is to inform the public about what's going on, these stories have deeply penetrated me and have become a part of my story as well. Precisely for this reason, although my aim was to give hope to girls in Turkey with this book I wrote, before everyone else, I was filled with hope. The stories of the girls and young women in our book, I Can, really healed me. I Can is not only my book. We prepared this book with photographer Mustafa Seven for and with Aydın Doğan Foundation, which has contributed to gender equality and empowerment of young women in Turkey for many years. The book highlights the girls and young women of Turkey who have been successful at showing presence in many areas of life, despite the obstacles. With this book, Aydın Doğan Foundation aimed to inspire and support more girls overcome the gender stereotypes within the society and to highlight the importance of education and gender equality. The book tells the stories of 21 girls and young women from Turkey's 11 different provinces. And in the book, you often come across the following sentences, like girls don't wear shorts, girls don't leave the house, girls don't play football, girls don't ride bikes, girls don't wear leggings, girls don't do karate, girls don't do this, girls don't do that. These are the words of neighbors, relatives, acquaintances everyone who have a say in the lives of these girls. They're everywhere in the village, in the city, in the neighborhood, on the street, in the next house. In Turkey, although girls' experiences differ, they are quite similar in terms of obstacles they face, and their experiences intersect in these sexist and discriminatory sentences of people around them, especially in areas that are culturally accepted as men's profession or men's sports. The first wall is to build by those who do not believe in these girls. Some of the girls in this book broke their shell by applying pressure from inside, and some started off with the support of their families, teachers, or coaches. Their stories are full of not only success, but also failures. They tasted defeat as well as victory, but nevertheless did not give up. These girls who have been working diligently in different fields such as art, sports, and science are aware that despite the pressure from the neighborhood, early marriage is not their only option in life. They refuse to become the stereotypes set by society, and they challenge the mentality that keeps girls away from education, sports, and work. They put into practice each sentence they start with, I want to, and they make every effort to stand on their own feet. traveling thousands of kilometers from one province to another, from east to west, south to north. I was a guest in the lives of girls whose stories we told in the book. I had the opportunity to observe and get to know these girls in their living spaces. They all had the same light in their eyes. At a very young age, they had suffered so much that perhaps most of us have not experienced in our lifetime. But in spite of this, they did not give up and continue on their way with determination in order to build a brighter future for themselves. They're all very hardworking. Selin, who achieved international success in the field of robotics, worked for 6 months, day and night, and some nights without any sleep, to build the robot of her dreams when she was only 11. Currently studying industrial engineering at one of the best universities, Gizem had a very difficult childhood. She had to do all the housework, cooking, and look after her little brother since her mother was suffering from cancer. She spent her remaining time studying. Emine, currently studying law, studied for hours every day in a makeshift house in a village, trying to protect her books from running rainwater. Aerobic gymnast Ayşe Begüm has been traveling 200 kilometers every day for training since her childhood. So they're all determined, hardworking girls. But even that is not enough. Other support is definitely required. The common feature of the girls and young women in this book is that most of them have their parents' support. Not only do children believe in themselves, their families also believe in them. And sometimes they challenge a huge village that says girls should not do that or this by saying, my daughter can. Sometimes a teacher, a trainer, a district governor can change the lives of girls in Anatolia. While I was writing this book, I realized that there's much more to be done in Turkey to empower girls, and we all have a task. I strongly believe that with even little support, miracles can happen. The stories of the girls in this book really inspired me. I believe there's no way we can build a better future for ourselves and the next generation if girls are left behind. So as Aydın Doğan Foundation suggests, empowered girls mean empowered futures.
Thank you so much, Melis. The sentence you have said that the first wall for girls is built by those who do not believe in them has resonated strongly as a girl child growing up in Turkey who actually have gone through many of those walls. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for bringing together these stories, because they're so inspiring, both for the younger girls as well as, you know, us all, the older generations, quote unquote, that needs that energy and inspiration and passion, hearing them from those girls. Thank you so much. Now we'll be moving to the second part of our panel. And there I would like to ask actually basically the same question, but from their own perspectives to our panelists. So what more do you think is necessary to ensure that girls and young women can be empowered, especially through education, but also in non-conventional professions they choose? Your concrete suggestions for new methodologies, of course, would be more than welcome, so we can all learn from each other. First of all, can I ask Professor Kaçar, we know that you are also working to inspire and empower young women in fields related to your work, which is inspiring by itself, but you're also working hard for that. Could you give us some insights into how you think the support for young women in the fields of STEM should look like?
I believe that the women's issue or issues in general are not necessarily women's problem. We are not the ones who generated these problems, but we are expected to solve them. It is, you know, it's not our problem to be expected to correct. That's really what I think to start with. And I look forward to the day where these sort of panels include men as well, or folks that don't identify with any gender, so that we can have a more homogeneous conversation. And I look forward to the day where other gender identities also want to fix these problems about women broadly and are as passionate as we are, just to make it easier for, not just for us, but for the folks and the women coming after us as they are for the women in their lives, their daughters, their children. So I look forward to that day. We need to train the suppressor, not the suppressed. We need to train them, and unfortunately, it seems like it's our responsibility. But these sort of activities still feel a little like preaching to choir for me. We all know these problems. We reach out to maybe a group within the younger, the next generation that understand this and seek inspiration and read our biographies or look at our pictures or put our photos on their walls for impact, but that is still not it. We need to train the opposite group that is causing these issues. And I think there needs to be an actual educational systems, and they have to be mandatory. That these, especially the opposite gender who's causing these problems, need to attend or early on. And they need to be given examples, the historical examples of what happened to what their gender did. It's very similar to, in many cultures, how we learn our history. So aside from only bombarding this amazing men of the history and teaching these amazing men stories, we may also teach the story that we know, that we learn over time, and we are shocked to hear that someone was just burned at stake for having an opinion just because they were a woman. And remember our shock, or I'm sure you know it when you first heard it. I remember how I was terrified when I heard it. That needs to be an equal effect to the opposite side as well. So it's not just us that should know these things, because we know them too well, we live it. And I also think that expecting the inner grit or inner power and inner drive constantly from women is not realistic. It is in some ways, I don't know what sort of feeling it may perpetuate over time, because you don't want to end cynical just because you just constantly push it, climb harder, don't give up, go, yes, you can. Excuse me, this is a little too much. Okay, so I think that's also, you need to cultivate so that you don't always feel like you have to have this inner power. We are human, we're not robots, we're not AI, not yet. So it is, we're not expected to have this constant fire in ourselves. Especially when we are also bombarded with these, insane stories every day. I mean, come on. So let's be realistic about these things. I think there are multiple action items that I would like to see. So again, the long-term plans to keep girls in science, and this is not about science also. It doesn't. We don't want every girl to be in the lab, cure a disease or find aliens elsewhere. That's not the goal. The goal is to make sure that we raise skeptic women, or at least give them the chance to receive this education without the sacrifices they have to make, without giving up a big part of themselves. Okay, the goal is to raise women who have the choice, the freedom to choose whatever they want to be and whatever they don't want to be, as long as it's what they want. And very important that, for most of us, we are going back to normal, and we may look forward to it. This may be just an unfortunate year where we, couldn't get a, nice break or couldn't leave our home. But for many girls who actually need resources, this 1 year is going to be a detrimental impact. It will make a detrimental impact in their lives that will maybe take decades to undo. So we should make sure that we don't lose a generation of girls. And I don't want to listen to their stories 15 years into the future, how that year changed their life for the worse. I want to read stories how that year actually opened doors for them, because people like us reached out to them knowing that things are not going to go back to normal for them. And even that their normal wasn't very normal, and whatever the normal they're going back to isn't that, even that little bit isn't there anymore. For STEM, as I said before, I think it's important that if you're interested in science, focus on the question, but it is not worth your mental health. It's not worth your own. You need to survive as a woman first. You need to live as a human being first. So if you're facing, if you're feeling weird, if something is feeling just not normal, it's not you. It's, it's not in your head. So it is, there must be something wrong. So trust that feeling that if something feels wrong, it is wrong. And we should stop telling women that you're just being too emotional, or it's in your head, or you may, no, we all know that it is true. So trust that voice early on. The sooner you trust yourself, the better for you. So get on that really, really quickly, okay? And ask for help. It doesn't make you look weak. It doesn't mean anything. Reach out, ask for help. It is okay to say that I need your help. Let people help you. It's a great thing. We want to help you. I ask for help all the time. None of us do this alone. You are not alone either. And with that, I will stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kaçar. As you've said, it's a whole society approach that we need to have to ensure gender equality. It's not a women's issue or girls' issue. And we very generally hear, also in Turkey, but throughout the world, isn't women who raise these violent patriarchal men? Women do not raise children in a vacuum. They raise it within the society, and whatever values we try to put in them, if society gives them a different message, they pick up on that very quickly. So we need a whole of society approach really to ensure that gender equality happens. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to go to Derya Gizem again to ask her opinions from the perspective of young people, which honestly I have forgotten a little how that was like. So Derya Gizem, can I ask you, as a young woman, you have the first-hand experience. So considering the context we live in today, what do you think is necessary for the empowerment of young women and girls?
I think girls' education must be one of our priorities. Economic support should be provided to families with economic difficulties, so that girls receive quality education. The development and education process of girls should be supervised by competent authorities, and necessary measures should be taken to prevent girls from leaving education. Processes such as distance learning, where especially girls are excluded from school, should be observed. Another issue that should definitely be addressed is child marriage. Child, early and forced marriages must be prevented. Child marriage takes away children from their families, exposes them to domestic violence, and adversely affects their education. Gender equality, I think training should be included as a lesson in schools. Girls spend 160 million more hours than boys doing household chores every day, according to a report released by UNICEF. If girls and boys are educated at school, they may realize that the household chores are not tasks only for girls. So girls cannot spare the necessary time for their education because they should be at the forefront of houseworks. These conditions got even worse with the lockdowns and school closures imposed by the COVID pandemic. Obviously, for all this to have a meaning, we have to be alive first. 300 women killed by men in 2020 in Turkey. So, as it can be seen, adequate protection was not provided to women despite the Istanbul Convention. The way to prevent femicide is to enforce the convention, not to withdraw from the convention.
Thank you so much, Derya Gizem. As you have said, and as also Professor Kaçar mentioned, COVID has put an extraordinary pressure onto the lives of all women and girls, and they're in the front lines of COVID response as well, with the care work that they do at home as well as in the health sector, and supporting them economically, as you've said, is also a very important part of the issue. And of course, the elimination of violence against women in all its forms should be at the forefront. Thank you so much for sharing all of these with us. Now I'd like to turn to Melis for one last time to ask, you have mentioned that you worked on women's issues in the last 10 years. And as agreed by many, the women's rights and girls' rights movement in Turkey are among the strongest movements. What do you attribute this to? How can we continue to strengthen these movements and keep their strength?
Well, as I said, I think the reason women's movement easily gain momentum is because the problems women face are common in society. This movement includes all women, regardless of their language, religion, sect, class, or ideology. I think women are better at working together for a common goal with a joint effort despite their differences. This is why I believe women will change the world. The strength of women's movement comes from solidarity and collaboration amongst all women across the world. So I believe this togetherness makes the movement stronger every day. And I think, you know, women are on the streets every day for the Istanbul Convention not to be canceled. So I hope, you know, women will take again what they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melis. We all deserve the protection of our human rights and a life free from violence for all of us. Thank you so much. Now we'd like to move into a question and answer session. Due to the technical limitations of the format we're in, we can take questions through chat. So I'll start with the questions that are already there, but if you'd like to add questions below, we'll be happy to direct them to our panelists. So the first question, and an easy one, goes to Derya Gizemir. The question was whether there's a website that these peer-to-peer mentoring projects can be looked into.
Thank you for the question. Actually, we don't have a website, but we have an Instagram account. Our Instagram account and name is Sen de yapabilirsin. I can write on chat.
That will be very helpful.
It's Turkish.
Thank you. And they can follow your activities from that Instagram account? Wonderful. Thank you so much. I see Derya Gizem is putting it down on the chat for all of you. We have comments saying that yes, we can, and girls' power, which we truly believe in, really to drive energy from the power of girls and young women throughout the world. We have a comment on the 2022 International Working Group for Women and Sport World Conference in New Zealand. And there's a website shared with us, iwwomenandsports.org, if you're interested. Our next question is to Professor Kachar from Meltem Oflu from Baha'i International Community. Besides making education available for every girl and giving them equal opportunities, what should be done to change the system you are referring to? So the system itself reflects the reality of equality of women and men.
That's a difficult question. It's an important one too. So first of all, we need to realize that the system is people, right? So there's no system without people. So if you want to change a system, you have to change the way people think. And that is very difficult to make, you know, to inspire that sort of change at the level of an individual, the way that an individual thinks. You need to educate, and you need to, you know, educate in the right way, in the way that it is actually meaningful and impactful. And that doesn't, the education isn't necessarily from one individual to the other. It's also a self-education. We need to educate ourselves and check our own biases. And this is not only for men. Women also have these biases against other women. Especially for very masculine cultures, you see that women are usually the sort of the vesicles. They handle, they do the parts to each other. And so we need to educate ourselves, check our own biases, and where if we have the power, we need to make sure that there are set educational policies in place to train others. And for that, this is only possible. I'm not a social scientist, so this is not what I do. But this is why entire social studies exist. They find the right phrases and name these things to define them. And to define them, you need to honestly and openly face them and accept them, however ugly it is. I think most people don't want to admit that they may be sexist. I have yet to meet a sexist man in my life. I have never met a man who says they're sexist. So, you know, it just never happened to me. And but it's so we need to basically make sure that these I think sort of open conversations exist where people respect each other and understand each other. And obviously by each other I mean it's one way. This is not a two-way conversation. This is not a debate. It's a fact. So we need to make sure that they listen and learn about these things.
Thank you, Professor Kocar. Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if I was muted or not, but thank you so much for your sharing. I think the toughest issue is to actually change the system, which, as you've said, requires the input of everyone in the society. Thank you so much for that. And if I may add from my side, I think you see here, if I may include myself, 4 different women from Turkey in their different circumstances. We all had probably very different conditions when we were growing up. So looking at this issue intersectionally, what hinders us as girls in Turkey, what hinders us in the international arena, what hinders us as young people, looking in all these different conditionalities helps us to look into the system a little deeper and identify, as Professor Kocar said, these terminologies, issues, and problems. Thank you so much. The next question hasn't been directed to any of our panelists, so to all of our panelists, so you're welcome to answer it. Sauda Savari asks, how do you see child marriage ending? By legal action, education, mentoring, all 3 mechanisms?
I could answer that.
Please.
Okay. So we need them all, actually. We need support systems, support mechanisms in the beginning, so that, you know, we need a climate that young women, children, women, of all ages can talk freely, and we have good laws. But the problem in Turkey is that these laws are not applied. So we need to apply these laws. We need them to be applied, and education, of course. But I'm not talking about academic education only, but we need gender equality classes and all sorts in this education as well. But then, as Betül Kocar said, it's like, you know, the shift in the society is a very slow one, I think. So, you know, everybody should work for it, and we need a shift in the mentality. So it's very difficult, but I think, again, the women's movement is doing a lot of work there. So, you know, I think I feel the change in the last 10 years. I feel, you know, a big change. So it's quicker, it's faster. So I think it's going to get even faster, and we'll walk for the equality, I think.
Thank you so much, Melis. And the question actually got a second part right now from the same participant. What's the role of culture in the process of ending child marriage? If any one of you would want to speak to that a little.
It's immense, because child marriage is the culture, actually. So, you know, you have to totally get rid of that culture and, you know, put something new. So that's why it needs a mentality shift, and it's really, really difficult, but not impossible. It must happen, and it's gonna happen.
Thank you so much. Professor Kaçar, would you want to say goodbye through unmuting, if you'd like?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And this is very empowering. It's a great way, the best way to start my day. Now let me go and talk to a group of men about my science. So, thank you, and have a nice day. And thank you for organizing this.
Thank you, Professor Kaçar. Our deepest regards and thanks for your contributions. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Candan Fetvacı, I believe you would want to add something on this issue?
I just wanted to ask on comment about the culture. And this culture goes hundreds of years back. And unfortunately, it is so deeply rooted. But I truly believe to Melis that also a lot has been done in the past years. I think also economic and social development will also help in changing the culture. Because among the reasons we know that girls are getting married because it is economically more profitable for the family, unfortunately. So the culture will change with the economy, with the social change. That's why all of us are trying to do awareness projects. And these role models, these girls, Melis has been talking to, the photographs, the books, every little change, every little thing adds to the change. And we have to be optimistic because these are the things that is going to help with changing the culture. Let's finish up with a happy note. It's very difficult days. It's been a very difficult year and a half now, and we see a lot of difficulties coming for especially these young girls at their homes who can't go to school, etc. But it's going to be better, and with such wonderful people supporting this cause, I want to thank our panelists once more. And thank you also, Shehnaz, and thank you, UN Women and CSW, for giving us this opportunity. And to all our guests who have been listening, I'm sure getting together, developing these, spreading this out, it's going to make a difference. We are all hanging in there, and it's going to be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Candan. This is really the energy we need, as you say, in these tough times for throughout the world, that we know we can make change together and create a better life for many. There's one more note that I'd like to read, and then I'd like to give the floor to our panelists for their closing remarks. The last question we can take is from Burçak Dalgıç. She says that I'm very impressed with Derya's life journey, as well as participating in society's development with being a working woman who is contributing to society in terms of justice. She's helping the new generation for education so that younger girls will have the opportunity to live in a productive way. I believe this way of living, accompanying others to be productive, is a noble cause. As the Aydın Doğan Foundation says, helping others is actually helping yourself, is the meaning of life. I believe this way of living is a noble cause. In the case each individual has a noble purpose in life, would this help to prosper? How do you think this can be achieved, to have this noble cause by everyone? Burçak Dalgıç asks from International Baha'i Community. Derya, would you want to maybe shortly look into this?
Yes, I think everyone should do whatever they can. I mean, foundations financially supports girls' education. We, as students, communicate with girls and tell them what we know. I mean, we give them motivation. So yes, I think changing is possible, but just everyone just has to make an effort, I think.
Thank you so much, Derya Gizem. Now I can open the floor for last remarks. Maybe we can start with Melis and then go to Derya Gizem and then Candan Hanım.
Thank you so much for today, for this panel. It was great to be together with these great women. So I just want to say that the world is in a terrible stage, but and I'm not really hopeful in many areas and aspects. But the only thing that I'm really hopeful about is this, you know, women walking together to equality. So I'm really hopeful there. And, you know, it keeps me actually we need hope to keep us alive. So it really keeps me alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all your contributions today, Melis. Derya Gizem?
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts and our project here. I think it's very important for girls to be educated and involved in life. Therefore, their education should be supported and included in decision making mechanisms. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Derya Gizem. You're so right. We need more young women like you, more young women from throughout the world in decision-making mechanisms to ensure that you can actually build up the future that you're going to live in. Thank you so much. Candan Hanım, would you like to say a few last words?
Thank you. Thank you. I think Derya's words are very important. We do need the leaders, but as you can see, they are coming up and there are already wonderful leaders, but we need much more of them. And I want to be optimistic. And I also agree with Melis that women power all over the world and women's collaboration capacity and understanding of the world's problems I think is much more wider than the present rulers, let me say. So the more we get into the leadership and decision-making positions, I'm sure it's going to be a much different world. So let's keep on sticking together, no matter which part of the world. And this, if there's one thing that came out from the pandemic, we see that it's actually not so difficult to be in touch with each other. And this will bring about, I want to believe this will bring about a lot of new opportunities, new alliances, and new movements. We just need to keep on working. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Candan Hanım. So thank you all so much for being here with us today. We've actually come to the end of our panel, but we've been enlightened and inspired by many of the discussions. We're sharing with you now the contact information for the Aydın Doğan Foundation. We have the website, there's a Facebook account, there's Instagram and YouTube that you can also watch or share this parallel event with your colleagues from. If you go to the YouTube account of the foundation, you can share the recording with your colleagues that might want to listen. As Candan Hanım also mentioned, as the Aydın Doğan Foundation is actually looking forward to continuing the work and collaboration with the international women's movement throughout the world for the empowerment of young women and girls. So if you please stay in touch, please be in contact. Only together, as we've said, with a whole of society approach, we can overcome these systemic challenges in front of girls. And we hope to see you all again in another meeting in another time. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Shehnaz. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Melis. Thank you, Derya.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.